In 1967, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act was passed. This made it illegal to discriminate against a person on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin, and this includes strictly prohibiting sexual or sex-based harassment. Even though this was made decades ago, many people are still facing mistreatment, like sexual harassment in the workplace. Hi, I'm Maia D, and today's question is, to what extent does sexual harassment of colored women in the workplace affect their well-being and productivity? To understand the real impact of current sexual harassment, according to a study by the Journal of Impersonal Violence, they found that minorities experience the highest levels of harassment and discrimination in the workplace. Stated by Alba Conti's book about sexual harassment in the workplace, 80% of women workers in the restaurant industry reported experiencing some form of sexual harassment at work. In the chart shown here, from the data collected, it shows that 33% of Black women and 32% were Latinas, compared to white women, where 25% have experienced discrimination while on the job. Minorities have always been the greater targets for various kinds of unfair treatment for hundreds of years, and the negative impacts on the victims continue to build up, which has shown to lead to many historical movements and changes as a result. The claim is that the mistreatment of colored women in the workplace have a strong negative effect on their reputation and profession, their mental and physical health, and productivity of work. The long-term damage of sexual harassment has on people greatly ruined their lives and the victims and companies. To begin, a setback that many women feel as a result of being a victim of sexual harassment is the backlash and judgment from society and their work. Women who do report sexual harassment end up without references and scrambling for income between jobs. And speaking up can be harder for women who are paid less since they cannot risk losing their current position. And according to a study done by the University of Massachusetts Amherst, 68% of sexual harassment charges include an allegation of employer retaliation. This rate is the highest for Black women. This would cause the victims to feel pressured to not report their encounter because it can affect their chances of getting promoted, finding a new job, or normally fitting into work. Also stated by the article Empowering Women Through Sport, victim blaming has become part of our culture, which normalizes the abuse targeted towards women, which burdens the victim to carry the weight of mistreatment in order to avoid social consequences. In addition to the backlash from society, the effects on the health of victims are severely impacted. Victims of sexual harassment often suffer from emotional and psychological harm, including stress, depression, anxiety, and decreased confidence and self-esteem. Physical health problems may arise, such as loss of sleep and appetite, weight fluctuations, nausea, and headaches. These results often arise in most victims, but for women of color, their self-esteem could also decrease as a result of the shame for their race. For example, Black women remain vulnerable to sexual violence due to intersectionality, which is a systematic oppression Black women experience because of their race and gender, in which they often come to believe that is the root of their problems and blame themselves for the acts committed against them. And psychologists have found that the trauma created from sexual harassment begins with a gradual development of stress and can lead to dangerous health complications. Sexual harassment not only affects its victims, but the company in which the act took place. According to a Deloitte study, the productivity loss from sexual harassment of $2.62 billion, and 75% of women who have been victims felt that the effects undetermined their job performance. This shows that a large decrease because of the uncomfortable atmosphere in the workplace and the anxious employees. It also found that victims and witnesses chose to leave their jobs after being harassed at work, and the unemployment rate of the company goes up, leading to an increase in employee turnover and cost. The chart here shows the results from a study from Maine Public, where the consequences of harassment lead to increased career changes and a decrease in morale, productivity, and employees. But the possible solutions to reduce sexual harassment in the workplace and prevent the negative effects would be to require employees to have experience in anti-sexual harassment training and require it as a requirement for employment. And to encourage women and movements like Me Too, so victims would feel safe and supported in their working environments. Although enforcing these policies would require and requirements would help to reduce mistreatment in the workplace, some men could have negative attitudes and choose to limit the possible opportunities for women in order to avoid interactions and risks of mistakes, instead of learning and growing as a result of change. In conclusion, the well-being, career, and company of colored women are negatively impacted by the acts of sexual harassment in the workplace. The effects are shown to have a great consequence on the lives of victims, but with support and change, the discrimination women face will be greatly reduced. Thank you. Questions?
I do have 2 questions for you.
Mhm.
First question, how did your research question evolve as you moved through the process?
Well, originally, my question was, well, I got, wait, when we shared our thoughts on, when we shared our thoughts from reading the sources, I got inspired by that, and I started with a very broad subject of like sexual mistreatment towards women. And then with more research and from my peers, I got help to specify my question so that I focused it more on sexual harassment on minorities and colored women, which helped me get to my question.
Okay. And if you had more time, what additional research would you conduct on this issue?
I would have included the judicial effects and like fines towards offenders, unemployment, and like restraining orders that could come as a result. And also what would trigger the offenders to commit the act, like what lack of respect they would have, or what environment they grew up in, or the environment of the workplace, and the fact that they could be insecure and need gratification.